Alright, so I have been asked multiple times by people figuring out what hardware I'm using to do the 32/43 GPU rig. And I tell them what I use, and people don't really understand it, so I thought I'd probably do like a 3-part video going over hardware, how I have it, what I've done for troubleshooting, and figuring out everything. So, this is mostly it. This is a BioStar Z590 BTC Duo with a 11400. The 11th gen is key from a few reasons. I'm not no fancy YouTuber or anything. I'm not going to have screenshots going back towards the computer showing you technical data of the BIOS and everything. But to make it simple, on the 11th gen, you get more PCI lanes for the DMI, from my knowledge, and from reading, and from doing everything. And what that does is it allows you to have more of the M.2 slots available. Why that is important. So this one with the ribbon cable coming out of it is directly to the CPU. The PCI slot is a 8x electronically, physically a 16x. So the one in the middle right there is another one that goes to the CPU. That is for the chipset, the little riser adapter. And then this M.2 is also for the chipset. Now, when you're using a riser board like this that has a PLX chip or any other riser, you want it directly to the CPU PCI lanes. You do not want to use the chipset. For reasons I do not know, and I do not want to know really. But to make it other simple, the DMI you can do on this board has a mining mode. When you do mining mode, it takes the DMI from a 4x PCI to a 8x for more bandwidth. Makes sense. You need it. So that means that all of these PCI 1x slots here and all of those and that M.2 and that M.2 have better communication to the CPU. But if you have mining mode enabled, it takes 4 lanes from the CPU away. So that M.2 in the middle that's not being used is not working. It gets disabled via the BIOS. So my thought process of the original idea of the whole thing before that came into play was to use 4 of these and all of these to have the most possible ports. I did not have the ASUS B250. That will be another video later. But to make it really easy and simple, this 4X right here goes to a 16X slot, but it's a 4X electronically PCI Express. This riser board only takes a 4X PCI. This 8X, I use a PCI jumper cable. Mostly a PCI ribbon cable that is double slotted. There are some pros and cons I found with that makes it a lot harder. But I digress. But how I had it set up for the 43 GPU rig, I had the jumper cable in the 8X, the M.2 to this to the riser adapter that comes with the board. I had that PCI 1X, and I had these 6 PCI 1X and these 4. I couldn't do any more of the allotted 14 AMD GPUs that you can add to a boot system. I ran out of PCI bandwidth. The BIOS literally said, you have no more PCI. It was quite funny. Because I had 2 of these, so that's 32 NVIDIA CMP 100s. Then I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. AMD GPUs. That's all. The max I could get out of this system. I plugged it into that slot right there, and it wouldn't boot. Had to unplug one of these, and then it booted up and said, we had an error. Yeah. But it's not simple. It took a lot of figuring out. Also, the other issue is the jumper cable and power. So the 16X board has a 4X slot in the middle, right here, a 4-pin CPU, and then 8-pin PCI Express, like a normal graphics card would. I have probably spent a week of troubleshooting and figuring out stuff, and I killed a board trying different things. But the power comes through here and out there, and power comes in here and out here. If you understand that, that means that this gets powered on, it can backfeed into this. So understanding power and how it works is probably the most important thing. I've had multiple times where the rig would crash or had issues, and I would turn it off, but the motherboard the fans would be on, it'd be blinking, but the PSU plugged into this was actually turned off. One reason why I have a PDU plugged into the whole rig, so that I could kill the power to everything. But to make this really simple, you need as many PCI lanes from your CPU. You need a motherboard that has a BIOS that supports you doing things like this. That's first key. This board is special. If you can see all the traces, it is 1X to 16 PCI slots. It does not take 8-pin PCI Express power. You only need 2 of these and 2 of these to power the whole thing, because the GPUs really only take like 20-25 watts per slot. It's all enrated and everything. You need airflow for that. That is actually an Alpha Cool heatsink they commissioned for this project. I don't know. There's not a lot of information on this board. But the PLX chip that's underneath this has to talk to the CPU PCI lanes. That's about all you need to know. Power, that, and this have to talk together. Let's see. Another issue that I ran into is, because I have 2 on this setup, if you booted up, only one of the riser boards would actually report the cards. So you have to reboot it to get both to boot, because it has to load it up in the BIOS for the kernel, for everything to be talking to. That's another thing. Second thing, I know everybody here on YouTube is HiveOS and everything. HiveOS does not work for this. There are settings in NVIDIA that you have to change via the devs, and it doesn't work. I'm not smart enough to change them, but I did contact the dev from MMPOS, and he has it so by default with the NVIDIA 353 driver, you have to have more than 16 and the Xorg server will be disabled. And with CMP cards, because they report as a 3D accelerator, it just loads them as a PCI slot device, kind of. I probably missed saying it or saying it correctly wrong, but that's okay. Because I figured it out and I got it working. That's about all I can say. And yes, I have been told many times by people that this would never work. I just wanted to say I did it because I knew it was possible. I do wish Overpour was around to see it because he was inspiration to do this because he told me a lot of things and I kind of just grew from there and see what it evolved into. I think he'd be proud. And then want to do it. But I digress. Key points. Motherboard. Lots of PCI from the CPU. Motherboard. Riser board. Jumpers. MMPOS. If you have questions, comments, concerns, leave them. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, that's okay. I mean, it's okay. There's a lot of things I didn't understand. But Nets, I will show it working in the next video because it took a little while for this. But yeah, I think it works. It is very stable also, if anybody is wondering. I had it running for 30 days without reboots. 43 cards, yeah, it rebooted a lot. Probably because overclocks. Because it was taking 43 amps to run that. But I will show you the 16 card rig setup and the other fun stuff in the next video and the way that the 32 card rig has to boot up and everything and go from there. Hope you liked it, enjoyed. Don't try this. Really. It was a pain, lots of headaches, lots of time. Alright, I'm out.